All right, RUROUNI KENSHIN Season 2, Episode 9, and this is what I wanted to talk about last week, but the episode just didn't get quite far enough, so here is the meat, the crux of the fight between Kenshin and Cho, and all of the symbolism therein. This is what I really wanted to sink my teeth into and talk about. Also, I apologize if my voice sounds kind of weird. I've been a little bit sick the last few days, sore throat, stuffed up, so sorry if I'm annoying to listen to or if I do stuff like that. I'll try not to. But yes, I think that this version handled this very well. Although overall, I would say I probably do prefer the fight in the 90s version as opposed to this one. I think that they came through because in the last episode, I was like, the fight's feeling a little lackluster. It's not quite as intense as it was in the 90s Kenshin version, but I think they pretty much nailed the finale. And I would put the ending of the fight on par for both of them, and the only thing that would boost the 90s version up is just the soundtrack. But they did a really good job on the soundtrack during these scenes too, so I can't fault them for that. The music just isn't as good, but it's still pretty damn good. All right, so let's get into it here. I'll try to go in order to the best of my ability. Kenshin is here. He is fighting Cho, who is a member of the 10 Swords, Shishio's elite group of swordsmen, of assassins. And so far, Kenshin has basically been kicking Cho's ass with a broken sword, which says a lot about Kenshin's ability. But Cho pulls out this sort of like whip-like sword, the Hakiju no Tachi, however you pronounce it, I don't know. Basically, it's a whip sword. And one thing I love about Kenshin is that, not the character, but the series, is that it can have items like this and weapons like this and explain the physics in a way where you totally buy into it and believe that it's possible. So you have the situation here where Kenshin is pretty much defenseless and Cho is using a long-range weapon that he can maneuver within the air as he implements it. So there's pretty much no way that Kenshin can get close to him whatsoever. Kenshin has no long-range attacks. He has a broken sword, and Cho, snuck attacked him with the first use of the weapon and injured his leg, so he's a little bit slowed down. So Kenshin is at a massive disadvantage. The other characters show up. You got Misao, you got Okina, you got Shaku Arai and his wife, or Seiku. Yeah, Shaku was his father. And Kenshin in this scenario, sometimes he goes in full force and he doesn't really think about the long term of what's about to happen. But in the short term, he needs to save Iori's life. And what he decides to do is basically he looks over and he signals to Seiku to go and rescue his child as he distracts Cho. And that is Kenshin's plan. Pretty much life or death, whatever I can do in this situation, as long as this child is saved, then my duty is done. It's like this is what he's fighting for. He is fighting for this next generation, this generation of peace. And if there's anything he can do here, it's to save Iori's life, if nothing else. Then Seiku does something crazy. Instead of going straight for his child, he heads straight for the shrine. And everyone's just like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And he goes in, and there is the final sword created by his father. He grabs the sword, throws it to Kenshin, and it's all because of Kenshin's words, that he says something similar to what his father believed in, this hope for the next generation, in that, we may have to suffer now. And this is sort of like, I feel, how most people would feel about their children in general. It's like you suffer in order to give your child a better life. And in an overall grand scheme, in the world that Seiku's father was in, where he was in the middle of the Bakumutsu, was in the middle of this war that was going on. He had to forge these swords. There was pretty much nothing else he could do in this situation. That was his craft, that was his skill, but hopefully the swords could lead towards bringing forth a better generation. We suffer now, there's the pain, anguish, the war, but hopefully there would be a better outcome afterwards. And that's what Kenshin is hoping for. And that's why, as corrupt and destructive as the current government system is at this time, people are beginning to live a life in peace. That's why Kenshin, when he went to go and ask for a sword to be forged, he saw the family living in peace, living in harmony, and he didn't want to disrupt that. He didn't want to make them have to be part of this oncoming battle that he was inevitably going to be joined in with. So, he wanted to leave them be. And I think it's because of that, because of what he saw in Kenshin, that he trusted him with this sword. So he throws Kenshin the sword. But the trick of it is, everybody here, including Kenshin himself, believes this sword to be a legitimate, true katana, an instrument of death. And so Kenshin has this hesitation of having to draw it. And this is where everything kind of culminates, at least as far as Kenshin leaving everybody else behind in Tokyo to go face this challenge on his own. Would he have to ultimately succumb to the idea of killing people again? Would he have to become the Batosai again? There was, the fight that he had with Saito where he kind of reverted back to his former self, just kind of in the zone of that battle. It became life or death. And then he left all of his friends. He left Kaoru because he didn't want to involve them in this. And then after his sword was broken, it was sort of this ultimate symbolism of this reverse blade sword has no purpose here. It has no place here. You are going to have to revert to who you were before. It's like, it's inevitable. War is coming back. Death and killing is coming back. And it seemed like everything was leading Kenshin on this path that is going to be the ultimate outcome. Segregating from his friends, going back into battles that make him revert to the Batosai, having his sword broken. Everything is leading him towards having to kill again. And deep down, Kenshin knew that this was a possibility, right? And he grabs his sword, and it's just this ultimate moment. It's like, now's the time to decide, right? Like, there's no other option. And at first, Kenshin's like, I'm not going to draw the sword. And I'm going to try to find another way. He holds it. He's thinking about it. He's like, I can't do it. But then when Cho turns his blade on the child, on the infant, this is the important moment. There are, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not. There's a particular number of moments in the series where Kenshin's vow to not kill would be potentially broken. The first was when he fought Janae, where he did that spell on Kaoru where she couldn't breathe, and the only way to save Kaoru's life was to kill Janae. And Kenshin was going to do it until Kaoru broke the spell herself, right? But that was moment one. Moment two is when Kenshin is fighting Saito. He's fighting this remnant of his past. He's fighting somebody that he fought in the war. The battle is getting dirtier and bloodier, and he just snaps into that, muscle memory killing mode, and he's willing to fight Saito to the death. That was the second moment. And here we are coming across the third moment, where Kenshin has a real sword. Cho turns his blade on the child, or, acts like he's going to. And Kenshin only has a split second to decide. And there is no decision in this moment. He is not going to let Cho murder a child. There's no way in hell that Kenshin is going to let this happen. So when it comes to Kenshin's vow not to kill, the way that I see it is that, of course, he's going to do everything in his power to not kill and to maintain his, status of being this wanderer. But when he's forced into a situation where it's like Kaoru's going to die, or this child is going to die, he only has a split second to respond. Of course he's going to draw the sword. Of course he's going to attack. He's not just going to let this baby die. And the thing about it is he knows that if he breaks his vow, what that's going to do to him psychologically. But he's willing to take on that burden in this moment to protect the child. And that's a powerful moment. But what's even more powerful, of course, is what happens next. So yeah, Kenshin attacks, Kenshin dodges the Hakuju no Tachi. How do you pronounce it? I don't know. He dodges it a few times and slices Cho. The moment is intense. Again, I don't think it's quite as good as the 90s version did it, but it's still pretty damn good here. And this was it. He stands there. And this is where I think the 90s version did it a little bit better, is after the moment, after he knocks Cho down, there's a really slow, drawn out moment of Kenshin holding the sword, thinking about what he's just done. But regardless, he didn't kill him because this sword is also a reverse bladed sword. Now, some may call this corny or maybe a plot armor kind of thing where it's like, oh, okay, the one instance where Kenshin could have killed somebody, it just happens to be a different reverse blade sword. But I would contest that when it comes to the storytelling and the writing of this specific series, this moment has such a profound impact because it proves that somebody other than Kenshin himself also believes in this ideal of a better world moving forward. As of right now, it has always been Kenshin by himself. He has been the lone person with the reverse-bladed sword, with this vow not to kill, and every single situation that he is in is always something that tests him to the fullest extent of whether or not he's willing to do that again, and nobody seems to be on his side, other than, there's Sanosuke and Kaoru and stuff that support him, but nobody that's been through the same things that he's been through. The swordsmith in a way has, where he's had to create, he's not the one swinging the swords, but he's the one creating the swords this entire time. And during that flashback sequence, which I actually give a lot of credit to this version of the series because they actually did some good dynamic lighting with the sunset going on, so that was cool to see. But at that moment in time where he gave Kenshin the sword, you know, he was sort of at least acting like he didn't really believe in what Kenshin was working towards moving forward. But in this scenario where he created the reverse blade sword, he created different versions of it. There's the one that he gave Kenshin, and then there's one that they translate in the original anime as the principle for the stronger, sort of more sacred version, the one that you would offer up to the gods as opposed of giving to somebody, like something that would stand on its own, to just be like within a shrine. You know, it's basically like something very important, something honorable, something maybe even a little bit spiritual in a way. So Kenshin using this sword, not realizing that it was a reverse blade sword, going for the kill, and then ultimately seeing that he didn't kill Cho and it was a reverse blade sword. It is, I think it's a super powerful moment because it shows that the swordsmith also kind of, you know, sort of even beyond the grave was like, all right, Kenshin, let's give your way a try. It shows that someone else out there you know, had this same idea that Kenshin had, maybe eventually, maybe not when they were together, maybe not when he got the first one, but there was like this idea that it could be possible, you know, that Kenshin isn't exactly alone and that his ways of doing things are not necessarily as stupid or as ridiculous as everyone else is saying it is. You know, Saito is saying you're going to have to go back to being a killer. Shishio is like, I'm going to force you to be a killer again. Cho is like, I'm going to make you, you know, fight to the death. And it's like everybody else is pushing Kenshin this way, but somewhere out there, there's somebody that believes in the same thing that he did. And ultimately, I don't know, the moment just works for me. It's something that I've always found to be a very special scene in the entire franchise of Rurouni Kenshin. This particular moment where he gets the stronger version of the reverse bladed sword, and now he's going to have this moving forward. So the ending of this episode is very interesting, though, because there's a brief flashback of Kenshin sitting in a hut with a cat that is not in the manga, and it seems as though the next episode is going to be a flashback sequence. Now, I know there have been some one-shot mangas outside of the original series, so for context, I am most familiar with the original manga run, the original 28 volumes. I know there was a Shishio side story that I read like once, and then there was the side story that they did in season 1. I don't know if there's another side story about his first time using the reverse blade sword. I don't think there is, so this might actually be anime only material, which makes me a little bit nervous, but I'm willing to see what they come up with, because the thing is, if they are doing this anime only, there's no chance. I mean, the chance was very slim at this point anyways, but there's no chance whatsoever that they're going to finish the Kyoto arc in season 2. There's not enough episodes to go with the amount of chapters that we have. So if they're adding in anime only material, we just have no shot. There's like 0% chance that they'll finish the Kyoto arc by the end of season 2. The thing that makes me nervous, though, as much as I would be open to see the anime-only flashback, I really hope it doesn't last too long. I hope maybe it's only a single episode, because the Kyoto arc is so good and has such a good pacing to it. I would hate to break that up to go into like a 2 or 3 episode backstory, because, and maybe I'll think differently once it's over. You know, maybe I'll watch the backstory and be like, oh my God, that was amazing. I'm so glad they did that. Who knows at this point? But as of right now, I am a little bit nervous about the placement of a flashback episode. I'm like, because like the Kyoto arc, I mean, from here forward, like it just keeps building and getting better and better. And like the peak of that moment of Kenshin fighting Cho, there's so many more moments like that throughout the whole arc. Like I'm so excited to get to it. And to take a detour to do a backstory, I'm like, okay, well, all right, we'll see how this goes. I'm not going to say I don't want it at all. I'll see what they do with it, but I'm just a little bit nervous about it. And also, you know, it definitely means that we will not get to the end of the Kyoto arc by season 2. I have an idea of where the cliffhanger will be, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it for anybody watching Kenshin for the first time. But just if you are watching for the first time, there's no flashback scene here. It's just the Kyoto arc goes all the way through. So whatever they're doing for the next episode is anime only material. But besides that, guys, I really enjoyed this episode. I love this scene. I was hoping to talk about this last week, but they split it into 2 episodes, but that's okay. I thought they did a pretty good job here. I thought the second half of the fight was done way better than the first half. Overall, I would say I do still prefer the 90s version of Kenshin versus Cho, but since this new Season 2 version has given me many, many, many moments that I do prefer over the 90s version, I think it's fair that there's a little back and forth here and there. So let me know what you guys thought about the episode down below. Leave your thoughts, theories, and opinions about Kenshin, choosing to kill in that moment, finding out it's a reverse blade sword. Did the moment work for you? Did it not work for you? And leave all your theories about Kenshin moving forward. So thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. As always, thanks to everybody that sent us super thanks last time. It means so much to me. You do not even know, especially this time of year. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it, and I'll see you next week.